Alright guys, I hate ads and you hate ads, so let's keep this under 10 seconds. Support LowRes Wünderbred on Patreon and help us create brand new films, video essays, and series. Patreon.com/LowRes.
It's fabulous. I mean, I love making the movies, and it's great that there's a game which is, it's like a flashback to that genre, and it's, I can feel maybe a little bit like I had some influence on it, and so I feel very flattered,
Imagine a world where we're not only spared of countless Resident Evil films that have so little to do with their original concept, but also the Mila Jovovich action films that came in between and are, more or less, the same exact fucking movies. And before you start groaning, "Ugh, she's hot, these movies are dumb fun," just save your energy because you, yes you, are part of the problem here. These movies had the potential to be the first truly great video game adaptations, and they fell flat. They fell flat hard. The first film of the series is by far the most watchable of the bunch, and it's still not even a great zombie movie. That's not to say it isn't an enjoyable action flick, but it was the first step in tarnishing a property that could have produced some interesting cinema if handled correctly. But in order to deconstruct the alternate cinematic history of Resident Evil, of what could have been, we need to visit Ground Zero. The founder of the modern-day zombie genre, George A. Romero, was not only attached to write and direct the film adaptation of Resident Evil in 1998, but had actually shot a commercial for the game franchise in Japan. Romero signed on to direct an advertisement for BIOHAZARD 2, the Japanese title for the Resident Evil series, and marked his first return to the genre he created in 13 years. The commercial starred the late Brad Renfro and soap opera actress Adrienne France as Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield, respectively. Romero's advertisement is the closest thing we have to a genuine adaptation of the Resident Evil franchise under his helm. It literally looks like a live-action cartoon the way that the characters are dressed and the sets are designed. With that commercial, Romero proved that he was keen toward keeping accurate to the game in all of its flashy details. He'd mentioned in a documentary focusing on the making of the commercial that he wanted to shoot it in a very old Hollywood style, and thus the ad is not necessarily visually indicative of how his feature may have looked had it entered production.
BIOHAZARD 2.
Romero's BIOHAZARD 2 commercial impressed Capcom and studio heads, and in 1998, executives in the West decided to greenlight a Resident Evil film with the Night of the Living Dead director set to pen and shoot the script. Romero's screenplay, which found its way online sometime in the early 2000s, was far more faithful to the game than the eventual Paul W.S. Anderson version audiences got in 2002. The film would have set Chris Redfield, now a Native American unlike his game counterpart, and Jill Valentine as the romantically linked protagonist, and featured a roster of characters from the first two games. That included both Barry Burton, now an African American, and Albert Wesker, who in this version are war buddies within the unit, and much like in the game, Wesker is proven to be a double operative with his own goal in mind. Wesker is looking to capture the Frozen Tyrant, the big bad of the first video game, and sell it to the Umbrella Corporation. The script was seemingly uninterested in franchise building, at least with the game's characters, because many of these familiar faces received very definite and untimely fates. And although the project didn't move past pre-production, Romero was said to have casting choices in mind for the primary group of characters, including Kurt Russell as Chris Redfield and Peter Stormare as Albert Wesker. Whether or not either of these men would have signed on to the project, we'll never really know. While Romero took liberties with the material, there are parts of this script that are ripped straight from the video game, including the setting of the film, the Spencer Mansion. However, regarding the quality of the writing and the screenplay's plot, there was a lot of room to tone things up. Some of the dialogue is just plain cheesy to the point where it's hard not to cringe, and the characters are basically two-dimensional. It felt as if Romero was trying to shape the movie to get as close as he could to the experience of playing the video game, rather than taking the material and simply applying it to a filmic mold. Now again, this could simply be because the only script available was a first draft, but given the track record for films based on video games and just how reoccurring this problem is, it's possible that many of these instances could have squeaked their way into the final cut. Then again, you also need to weigh that against Romero's quality as a director. While films such as Martin and his Living Dead trilogy are absolute classics and he seemed to get back on track with Land of the Dead in 2004, Romero was not exactly producing great content in the 1990s. How many of you remember The Dark Half?
Without any falderall.
Ultimately, the studio decided to pass on Romero and his vision in favor of Paul W.S. Anderson's pseudo-science fiction, Matrix derivative screenplay that failed to feature any of the video game's characters or major plot points. The reasoning? It was bad. That's it. It was bad. Capcom's Yoshiki Okamoto was quoted as saying Romero's script was not good, so he was fired. Pretty simple, huh? But while the script admittedly was not in tip-top shape, there was still plenty of room for improvement. And it doesn't exactly explain why a version was greenlit that had no real purpose beyond showing off flashy effects and keeping Anderson's wife, Milla Jovovich, steadily employed. Thanks for checking out this video. We have a couple more deconstructions heading your way, so consider hitting the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this one, or subscribe for additional content or original content. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you for the next one.